Controversy began with comments made on a podcast involving LeBron James and Kevin Durant, where Michael Jordan's decision to step away from basketball in the early 1990s was referenced in a casual and joking manner. The issue was not simply that Jordan's baseball stint was mentioned, but that it was framed in a way that implied a lack of work ethic or competitive drive. This framing stood out because it ignored the context surrounding one of the most difficult periods of Jordan's life. What made the moment more noticeable was the absence of clarification. Durant made the remark, and LeBron reacted with laughter rather than adding historical context or correcting the implication. For many listeners, the reaction suggested that Jordan's departure was being treated as a lighthearted footnote rather than a deeply personal decision tied to profound loss. This is where frustration began to grow, particularly among former players and fans familiar with that era. Michael Jordan did not leave basketball because of fatigue, fear, or diminished motivation. In 1993, he was dealing with the sudden and devastating loss of his father, James Jordan Sr., an event that fundamentally altered his emotional and...
I'm gonna just give a couple of things about, if he wanted to do it fair, he would say, well, how many games did Michael Jordan play compared to LeBron? And actually, if you look at the numbers, Michael actually had 5,000 more points in his career, same number of games. 5,000, which is 2.5 NBA seasons. But you have to factor in, Michael went to college for 3 years. And if you remember, he broke his foot his first year, and he retired for 2 years. So if Michael went to the NBA 3 years sooner, not missed his rookie year with a broken foot, and not retired for 2 years, he would be the all-time leading scorer.
Can I say one thing?
Sure.
Did you ever look at how many shots Michael Jordan took and how many shots LeBron took?
I did not.
Michael Jordan.
They were both gunners.
Michael Jordan took way more shots.
Well, that was his job.
So
and let me tell you something. LeBron, we compare him favorable to Magic Johnson. He's a more of a triple threat than Michael was. I'll agree with that. But let me ask you a question. I want you to be honest with me in your heart.
All right.
If you had one game and you said, I need to win game 7, would you want LeBron, Michael, or Kobe in one game win all?
LeBron.
Okay.
Let's go back to Cleveland.
The benefits of modern recovery systems or roster flexibility. From that viewpoint, hearing Jordan's brief departure reframed as weakness rather than survival was difficult to ignore. Whether Bird publicly commented or expressed his reaction privately, the sentiment behind the response mirrors what many from that generation feel. There is a growing fatigue with how the 1980s and 1990s are increasingly minimized to elevate modern narratives. That frustration did not originate with one podcast episode, but it surfaced clearly through this moment. Jordan's career trajectory after returning from baseball further complicates any claim of diminished work ethic. He came back in 1995 and led the Chicago Bulls to 3 more championships, completing a second three-peat. His return was marked by complete dominance, suggesting that his competitive drive had not faded but had been temporarily redirected. This history matters when evaluating the contrast between eras.
We play in different eras. As he hasn't reached it.
Activity was shorter, not because of weaker preparation, but because the toll on the body was significantly higher. This difference in environment shapes how greatness should be evaluated. Comparing raw numbers without accounting for rule changes, play style, and physical demands leads to distorted conclusions. Greatness is not only about how long someone plays, but about how much they carry while doing so. Charles Barkley's comments reinforced this point by highlighting statistical context often ignored. In a comparable number of games, Jordan scored thousands more points than LeBron, despite entering the league later and leaving earlier. That comparison does not diminish LeBron's achievements, but it challenges the assumption that longevity alone determines superiority. The debate also raises questions about hierarchy in decisive moments. Jordan was undefeated in the NBA Finals and earned Finals MVP in every appearance. He never allowed a Finals series to reach a seventh game. These outcomes were not accidental. They reflected a consistent ability to control the highest pressure situations. Even Jordan himself has spoken carefully when asked to compare players across eras. He has praised LeBron's skill and impact while emphasizing championships and winning as defining factors. His tone has remained respectful, avoiding personal critiques or dismissive humor. That contrast in tone is part of why the podcast moment felt jarring. Jordan has never publicly mocked LeBron's failures or personal struggles. Seeing the reverse occur, even indirectly, highlighted a difference in how legacy and respect are handled. This situation also underscores a generational divide in how competition is viewed. Earlier eras were driven by rivalry and separation. Players sought to defeat their peers, not align with them. Success came from overcoming rivals, not joining forces. Bird and Magic exemplified this mindset. Their rivalry began before the NBA and continued through their professional careers, elevating both players and the league itself. They pushed each other relentlessly, and that tension became the foundation for the NBA's growth. Jordan inherited and intensified that mentality. His approach was obsessive, demanding, and often unforgiving.
Well, first of all, I wear the number because of Mike. I think I fell in love with the game because of Mike. For my name to come up in a discussion with the greatest basketball player of all time, it was like, wow. I did pretty much everything that MJ did when I was a kid. I shot fadeaways before I should have. I wore a leg sleeve on my leg and folded it down so you saw the red part. I didn't go bald like Mike, but I'm getting there. But it'd be post-career though. But I did everything Mike did, man. I wanted to be Mike. So for my name to come up in any discussion with Michael Jordan or Kareem and all these great guys that has paved the way for myself, so it's just a wow factor. I don't really have nothing to say.
Remembered, when those moments are simplified or misrepresented, the reaction is inevitable. The response to this situation reflects a broader desire for balance and honesty in basketball discussions. Fans and former players are not rejecting modern greatness. They are asking that it be evaluated without diminishing the sacrifices and realities of those who came before. In the end, the issue is not about humor or intent, but awareness. Certain moments carry weight that demands care. Michael Jordan's departure from basketball was one of those moments, and treating it with seriousness is not nostalgia, but basic respect.
Continuing from that point, the larger issue revealed by this moment is how modern basketball discourse often prioritizes narrative advantage over historical accuracy. Conversations are increasingly framed to elevate one era or one player by subtly undermining another, rather than allowing greatness to coexist across generations. This approach does not deepen understanding of the game. Instead, it flattens history into talking points that serve debate rather than truth. The reaction from former players highlights a growing disconnect between those who experienced the league before its global commercialization and those who operate within its current media-driven environment. Earlier generations played without the assurance of brand protection, long-term marketing strategies, or public relations buffers. Their legacies were forged almost entirely on performance, endurance, and results, not on how stories were framed after the fact. This distinction matters because modern platforms give players unprecedented control over narrative. Podcasts, social media, and long-form interviews allow stars to shape public perception in real time. While this access can be valuable, it also comes with responsibility. When history is discussed inaccurately or casually, the reach of these platforms amplifies the damage far beyond a locker room joke or private conversation. Another layer of this debate centers on how adversity is defined. In earlier eras, adversity was unavoidable. Teams stayed together longer, front offices had more authority, and roster movement was limited. Players were expected to solve problems internally through adjustment and development rather than through relocation or restructuring. That environment demanded patience and resilience, traits that heavily influenced how greatness was judged. In contrast, the modern NBA allows stars to exert significant influence over roster construction.
While this empowers...
We can forget. Now, he wasn't on that level. Hector Camacho was nice, but he wasn't on that level, okay? I'm giving you dudes that was on that level. I would say Aaron Pryor, but he took too many punches. He'd just take you out.
Is it Aaron Pryor the one that had the gloves?
I don't think so, but I know that when he beat Alexis Aguero, they were talking about, give him the stuff. Yeah. I don't know what the hell the stuff was. Right? I don't know what the hell the stuff was.
I remember that.
But let me tell you why I answered the LeBron James question that way, because it's a great question that you asked.
Right.
And everybody needs to understand this. Just like I talked about moments, you got to talk about competition. So when we talking about competition, right, then it has to be something along the lines of what would have happened had you gone against those people? Feel me? When LeBron was struggling to develop the killer instinct, that
a rejection of competition, but a pause necessitated by trauma. Treating that pause as evidence of diminished drive misunderstands both the man and the era. It also ignores what followed, a return that re-established control over the league and produced one of the most dominant stretches in sports history. Kevin Durant's comment, taken on its own, might have passed without lasting impact if it had been contextualized or clarified. The issue was not disagreement, but omission. Leaving the implication unchallenged allowed a misleading narrative to stand. In public discourse, silence can be as influential as speech, particularly when the audience is large. LeBron James occupies a unique position within this discussion because of his stature and influence. His career has been defined by visibility, expectation, and comparison from its earliest stages. He has carried the weight of being labeled a successor long before his resume was complete. That burden has shaped how his career is perceived and defended. However, with influence comes obligation. When a player of LeBron's standing engages in conversations about legacy, the way those conversations are framed matters. Laughing at an incomplete or misleading characterization of another legend's most painful moment signals indifference, whether intended or not. This perception is intensified by the way LeBron's own career is often protected within media narratives. Losses are contextualized, failures reframed, and milestones emphasized regardless of outcome. This treatment creates the impression of uneven standards, where some careers are shielded while others are scrutinized without context. That imbalance fuels resentment among fans and former players who value consistency in evaluation. They're not dismissing modern greatness, but questioning why certain realities are softened while others are simplified or dismissed. The desire is not to diminish LeBron, but to prevent the erosion of historical respect. The generational divide becomes even clearer when discussing competitiveness. Earlier eras were defined by separation and rivalry. Players measured themselves against peers, not through collaboration, but through opposition. Success was validated by defeating the best, not aligning with them. Larry Bird's career exemplifies this philosophy. His rivalry with Magic Johnson was not only competitive, but transformative. It elevated both players and revitalized the league. That rivalry thrived because neither sought to avoid the other. Instead, they pushed each other to extremes that shaped the NBA's identity. Jordan inherited that environment and intensified it. His competitive drive bordered on obsession, demanding absolute commitment from himself and those around him. This mindset produced extraordinary results, but it also came at personal cost. That cost is inseparable from his legacy. Modern discussions often focus on efficiency, longevity, and adaptability, valuable traits in their own right. However, they sometimes overlook the psychological toll of sustained dominance in hostile environments. Earlier stars faced relentless physical play, limited recovery resources, and constant pressure to perform without relief. This difference in conditions complicates direct comparison. Statistics accumulated across eras cannot be evaluated without acknowledging changes in rules, spacing, pace, and physicality. Raw numbers tell part of the story, but not its weight. Charles Barkley's comments resonated because they reintroduced context into a conversation that often ignores it. His emphasis on comparable games played and scoring output challenged assumptions built solely on cumulative totals.
It served as a reminder that efficiency and dominance can coexist without extended longevity. The finals record remains a focal point because it represents the highest stakes. Jordan's undefeated record in championship series is not merely symbolic, it reflects a consistent ability to deliver when pressure was absolute. That reliability defines how many fans understand greatness. LeBron's finals record, while impressive in volume, invites more complex interpretation. Multiple appearances demonstrate sustained excellence, but repeated losses complicate the narrative of ultimate control. This tension fuels debate, not because LeBron lacks greatness, but because the criteria for evaluating it vary. Kevin Durant's championships add another layer. His decision to join a historically dominant team altered how his success is perceived. While his performance was elite, the circumstances surrounding those titles affect how they are weighted in legacy discussions.